Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Soulcalibur is a weapon-based 3D fighting game developed by Project Soul and produced by Namco. It is the second game in the Soul series, preceded by Soul Edge in December 1995. Originally released in arcades in July 1998, it ran on the Namco System 12 hardware. It was ported to the Dreamcast in 1999 with new features and improved graphics. The North American version was released in September 1999 as a launch title for the Dreamcast, and was part of the successful launch of the new console. It became available as a downloadable title on the Xbox 360's Xbox Live Marketplace in July 2008. And it is backwards compatible with the Xbox One along with the sequel. A sequel, Soulcalibur 2, was released in July 2002. Developed closely with Namco's tech and development team, it is one of few home console ports that outdid their arcade parent graphics-wise. The title brought many innovations to the fighting game genre that include a heavy emphasis on weapons and a unique 8-way movement system. Soulcalibur is widely regarded as one of the best Dreamcast titles, and is one of the most critically acclaimed fighting games of all time. It is considered to be one of the greatest video games of all time. Gameplay. Nightmare fighting against Soulfisher in the Dreamcast version. One of the biggest innovations introduced by Soulcalibur to the gameplay system of its predecessor, Soul Edge, is the 8-way run. Previous 3D fighters had only limited movement along the third axis, with sidesteps and rolls providing useful, but unsustained lateral movement. In Soulcalibur, simply holding down a Virtua Fighter series have relatively strict buffering requirements, meaning expert timing is required to pull off many combinations. But Soulcalibur features much more lenient timing to successfully execute a buffer. Finally, the guard impact offensive blocking maneuver shown in Soul Edge was given a deeper range of techniques in Soulcalibur, allowing players to push back or redirect attacks past themselves as well as swatting away an opponent's weapon to stun them. Characters. Soulcalibur was originally planned to be a dramatic overhaul, featuring only a few select characters to be carried over from Soul Edge. However, 9 of the 11 characters from Soul Edge ended up carrying over to Soulcalibur by the time the roster was finalized in the Dreamcast version, with an additional 10 new characters joining the ranks. As with many fighting games, many of the new characters were heavily styled after already existing characters from the franchise. For example, new character Maxi has a fighting style and moveset influenced by Soul Edge's Li Long. In fact, Soulcalibur only added one original playing style, belonging to Ivy. New characters Zhanghua, Maxi, Yoshimitsu, Astaroth, Kilik, Nightmare, and Lizardman were based upon existing characters Huang, Li Long, Mitsurugi, Rock, Seong Mina, Siegfried, and Soulfisher. Consequently, Namco has been working since Soulcalibur to gradually separate the individual styles of the characters in order to make each one unique. Plot. The mystical Sword of the Legends, the Soul Edge, ended up in the hands of the dreaded pirate Cervantes de Leon of Spain. For the next 25 years, he stayed dormant on the remnants of a Spanish port town, taking the souls of those who reached him during their search of the sword. His reign of terror was soon to start, but through the joint efforts of Greek divine warrior Soulfisher, Alexandra, and Japanese ninja Taki, he was stopped and killed, with one of the twin Soul Edge blades being shattered in the process. as it was about to tear itself apart. Young Prussian knight Siegfried Stauffen approached the port town and battled Cervantes, whose corpse had been momentarily reanimated through Soul Edge's will. After emerging victorious, Siegfried's attention turned unto the sword. The moment he took the hilt of the cursed blade, Soul Edge released a bright column of light into the sky. This was known as the evil seed, bound to bring calamity and death in its wake. 3 years after those events, Soul Edge uses Siegfried as its host, and now Siegfried is Nightmare, a knight wearing azure armor and sporting a hideously deformed right arm. Europe plunges into a vortex of slaughters as he and his followers claim souls to strengthen the blade in its weakened state. Unknown to them, a group of warriors met on the journey to stop Soul Edge, and with them, 3 sacred weapons join once again. Development. After releasing Soul Edge, Namco took some time to evaluate what had made the game successful before jumping into the development of its follow-up. Producer Hiroki Yotoriyama decided to give the sequel a new name instead of just calling it Soul Edge 2 in order to have a fresh start and take the series in a new direction. The name Soulcalibur is a portmanteau of the word soul and King Arthur's sword Excalibur, inspired by an internal Namco prototype featuring a character able to run openly in a field. The 8-way run system was implemented. Upon application, the development team was surprised at how well it meshed with their fighting system and decided to build the rest of the game around it. During development, they worked closely with Namco's tech and development team, sharing ideas and research. Yotoriyama felt that, with that cooperation and partnership, they were able to develop the greatest weapon-based fighting action game in the world. Yotoriyama has described the game's concept as expressing fun and diversity in weapon combat, citing the contrast in how one weapon would affect gameplay compared to another, and how they would react to each other upon clashing. Each character's fighting style was designed to revolve around the weapon, though he noted that, because of the differences, they experienced difficulty in balancing the gameplay. He described the availability of movement in comparison to Tekken 3 as a large contrast between the two series and more tactical, and emphasized how it interacted with the game's Ring Out feature. Each character in Soulcalibur was designed around the idea that they could be viewed as a real person could, and to this end, motion creator Masataka Ishiguro emphasized the arm and leg movements for each character in relation to the weapon, wanting players to feel the individual motions and the realism within the game. The team for the arcade version of Soulcalibur consisted of roughly 60 people working on Namco's System 12 hardware, while the team developing the home port was reduced to about 40. Given a deadline of 7 months to coincide with the North American launch of the Dreamcast, the transition was difficult for the team, due to the differences in hardware. However, due to the similar capabilities and limits of each system, content was left intact between the two versions, with Yotoriyama feeling that the team was obsessed with giving their best effort for the port. The biggest technological change to the Dreamcast port was to render all of the game's stages in full 3D polygons, whereas the far backgrounds in the arcade original were flat, two-dimensional images. Additional content was also added to the game to ensure replay value, based on researching other fighting games marketed at the time. Many of the team's ideas that they were unable to incorporate into the port were eventually used for later games in the series. Release. The game was originally released in the Japanese arcades on July 30, 1998. A Gamist MOOC series guidebook Soulcalibur Skill Up Manual was published by Shin Seisha on September 27, 1998. Dreamcast. The Dreamcast port of Soulcalibur was released in Japan on August 5, 1999, and in North America as a launch title, on September 9, 1999. The North American Dreamcast version of the game removes one of Voldo's suggestive codpieces, featuring a bull. However, the codpiece is present in the European and Japanese versions, as well as the North American Xbox 360 version. The European Dreamcast version was distributed and advertised by Sega Europe. The Dreamcast version of Soulcalibur is one of the first examples of a home conversion of a game being graphically superior to its original arcade counterpart. Among the differences were the improved graphics, tweaked gameplay, new game modes, new costumes, and the inclusion of an extra character, Cervantes de Leon. The Dreamcast version features new modes such as Team Battle, Survival, and Training Mode. In Missions mode, the player completes various missions to attain points, which can be used to buy various art and costumes. Another feature added is the artwork section, containing official artwork, fan art, and high-res pictures. Also unlockable are a liquid metal version of the character's costume and a Battle Theater mode, plus a way to modify the opening introduction theme by changing the characters appearing in it, and an exhibition mode, displaying characters performing their katas. Xbox 360. In 2008, Namco Bandai Games announced a port of Soulcalibur would be released for the Xbox 360. The port was based on the European Dreamcast version and was made available for download on Xbox Live Arcade on July 2, 2008. While the game included HD updated graphics and various live leaderboards, online play was absent, which makes it an exception amongst most games ported to Xbox Live Arcade. Other features from the Dreamcast version are also in the game. While the intro is removed from this port, the intro music is still in this port. All content is unlocked by the start of the game. iOS. On January 19, 2012, Namco Bandai released a port of Soulcalibur for Apple's iOS platform. Game modes in this version include Arcade, Time Attack, Survival, Extra Survival, Practice, and Museum mode. The game was released as a universal app to run at native resolutions on iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch. The game is no longer available in the iOS store. Android. On November 20, 2013, Namco Bandai released a port of Soulcalibur for the Android platform. The app makes use of Google Play Games for synchronization between devices and runs at native resolution and screen aspect ratio. Reception. The Dreamcast version of Soulcalibur sold in excess of 1 million copies, and is the second biggest selling game on the system. It won the 1999 E3 Game Critics Award for Best Fighting Game and the 2000 Interactive Achievement Award for Console Game of the Year. The game received universal critical acclaim, garnering perfect 10/10 scores from GameSpot and IGN, and being the second game ever to get a perfect 40/40ths from Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu. As of 2017, game review aggregator website GamerRankings has the Dreamcast version ranked as the 7th best reviewed game of all time. as well as being the highest-scoring title in the fighting game genre. The Dreamcast version of Soulcalibur also holds a score of 98, making it one of the highest-rated video games of all time across all consoles and platforms on Metacritic. Retrospective. Soulcalibur was named as the #1 best Dreamcast game by Game Informer in 2009. IGN ranked Soulcalibur as the 5th best Dreamcast game, while Screw Attack ranked it 6th. GamesRadar named Soulcalibur the best Dreamcast game of all time on the list. In 2005, GameSpot ranked Soulcalibur as the 6th best launch title yet, calling it not only one of the greatest launch games or one of the greatest fighters, but one of the greatest games ever. Period. In addition, it is often considered to be one of the greatest games on all platforms, including Game Informer, the top 100 games of all time, IGN, top 100 games, Retro Gamer, top 100 games, IGN, top 100 games, IGN, Reader's Choice, the top 100 games ever. Electronic Gaming Monthly, the greatest 200 video games of their time. Screw Attack, top 10 fighting games. Cinema Blend, top 10 best fighting games of all time. Ugo.com, top 25 fighting games of all time. Complex, the 50 best fighting games of all time. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.